A warning bell went off in Nora's brain when she heard this, and she narrowed her eyes. My daughter was taken away and has returned in different clothes. That's not right. What's happened to her? Seeing Mummy look so serious and suspicious, Pete looked at Mrs. Lewis calmly and replied, "No, I'm not. Did you remember wrongly?" Mrs. Lewis hesitated when she saw how sure the child was. Really? Uh-huh. Pete changed the subject. He imitated Cherry's way of speaking and said, "Go back to bed, Mummy. I'm going to go play games on my phone now." It seemed like her daughter was behaving a little weirdly, but Nora was simply too sleepy to figure out why. Her mind was in a total daze. She couldn't concentrate, so she nodded and said, "All right, but don't open the door again. You must stay inside with Mrs. Lewis while I'm asleep." She'd settled the scores with Justin when she woke up. Abducting my daughter is absolutely intolerable. What is that man's problem? And who knows what really happened? Despite the worrying thoughts running through her head, Nora was so exhausted that she slept soundly until noon the next day. When she woke up, she saw a text message from Lisa saying that her aunt was awake and that she wanted her to visit with Cherry if she was free. She went to shower and dress. When she came out, she saw Mrs. Lewis and her daughter staring each other down again. Mrs. Lewis was holding a beautiful princess dress and was trying to coax Cherry into it. She said, "Why don't you wear this, Cherry? You're visiting a very respectable lady, so you have to be appropriately dressed." Pete stared at the puffy pink dress in horror, totally unimpressed. "I'll probably die of embarrassment if I put that on. I can't wear a dress, I just can't." Nora frowned and asked softly, "Can you tell Mummy why you don't want to wear a princess dress today, baby?" Pete saw that Nora had become a little suspicious again. He remembered how he was meant to be Cherry right now, and Cherry loved dressing up, especially when she had to visit people. She wore plenty of boys' clothes too, but she still loved dresses. Pete gritted his teeth and took the dress from Mrs. Lewis. It even came with a pair of white leggings. Pete was lost for words. He went into the bedroom, put on the dress, which was tricky as he'd never wore one before, and came back out. When he saw Nora's satisfied expression, he heaved a silent sigh. "I feel ridiculous. I didn't realize I'd have to wear a stupid dress to get our family back together." He didn't know how to walk properly in the dress, as he wasn't used to wearing one. Nora scooped him up. "Come on, Mummy will carry you as a treat." When she entered the hallway, Nora hid her daughter's face against her shoulder. Nora's mother had passed away when she was very young, but she always remembered her last words. They forbade Nora from behaving in a way that showed off her abilities. She was to keep a low profile and appear plain and mediocre to the world until she gained the ability to protect herself. Otherwise, she'd be in danger. She didn't know what kind of danger her mother had been referring to, but she'd always followed her instructions. This meant she was always cautious and tried to keep everything low-key, especially when Cherry was with her. The two of them went downstairs and took a cab to the hospital. When they arrived, they went straight to the VIP ward. Irene, who had bandages around her head, was already awake. A checkup had shown that she hadn't suffered any brain damage at all. The operation had gone practically perfectly. Lisa and Will were so much more relaxed than a few days earlier. Their faces no longer looked troubled, and they were elated to see Nora. Lisa rushed up to them and hugged Pete. "Are you Cherry? Look at you. You're so cute and pretty." Pete didn't know what to say. A hostile voice reached them, cutting across the joy and happiness in the ward. "Disappearing during the operation because you were afraid of being held responsible, and then returning like a loving niece once you knew it had all gone smoothly. Nora, what kind of person are you?" Angela walked in, her eyes red and hateful. She had dark circles under them and looked like she'd not slept. The school had issued her a warning after Dr. Athena exposed her the day before, which had cost her the title of outstanding graduate in her college's School of Medicine. She tried to create friction between Nora and the blacks and said hatefully, "All she did was press a few buttons and send an email to Athena. Why are you all so grateful to her? If she really cared about Aunt Irene, she wouldn't have left during the operation." Aunt Irene has to be mad about that, right? She's the patient after all. But as soon as the thought formed in Angela's mind, she heard Irene say, "Thanks for yesterday, Nora." Nora chuckled and replied, "No problem at all," which made her cheeks burn. Now I look like a clown for trying to sow discord between them. They're infuriating. How do they understand each other so completely with no need for words? She was about to say more when Wendy joined them. "Is this your daughter, Nora? She's so cute." Nora frowned and didn't reply. She found her annoying. Irene did too. Irritated by yet another interruption, she asked, "Why have you come back? What are you doing here?" The Smiths didn't express any concern about me before, and now they're here nearly every day. They must have some ulterior motive. They're getting in the way of my catch-up with Nora. I really wanted to get her alone. We've got so much to talk about. A look of disdain flashed across Wendy's eyes. Does Irene really think I wanted to come to the hospital? It's all because Nora refuses to answer our calls. We've had to come here looking for her. Henry, who was the last to enter, frowned and replied, "We're here to visit you, of course." He followed Wendy's gaze and looked at Pete. He put on a fake smile and said, "So this is Cherry. Her father may be a delinquent, but she looks pretty cute." Pete retorted, "My father is not a delinquent." Nora blocked Pete from them, rolled up her sleeves, and asked coldly, "Was the beating last time not enough?" She didn't care about their mockery, but she was afraid that Cherry would be sad. Thinking of the slap Nora had given her previously, Angela took a step back and hid behind Henry. "Dad, look at her. She's threatening to hit me, even when you're standing right here. She's too much." Henry was angry and threatened her in return. "You just try laying a hand on her, Nora. You're really running riot, aren't you?" Wendy stepped forward to mediate, saying, "Don't be violent in front of the child. Nora, when I saw Cherry, I couldn't help but wonder. If your little boy is still alive, he'd probably be very good looking too, wouldn't he?" That got Nora's attention. And Pete's. "All these years, I've asked and asked Dad what happened to my son. He's always refused to tell me. Why are they bringing it up today? They must be up to something." Sure enough, Henry took out the paperwork again. "You want to find your son, don't you? Sign the ownership transfer agreement, and I'll tell you where I abandoned the little—" Nora clenched her fists. A fierce look appeared in her eyes. Henry added forcefully, "You've been back in the States for a week, haven't you? You've approached private investigators, but I believe they don't have any news for you, right? I'll tell you this. I'm the only one in the world who knows where your son is. If you really want him back, then sign the contract." Nora took the pen from Henry without hesitation. Her desperate need for information about her son was her one weakness. Pete's eyes widened in horror next to her. "Mummy, don't." Nora turned to him. "Stop making a fuss, Cherry. If we can find your brother, I'm willing to give up everything I have, even the company." Pete realized then how much his mum really loved him. He grabbed Nora's hand. Pete wanted to reveal the truth, but if Nora were to find out now, she'd definitely take him and his sister away and leave their father here alone. Although they were always arguing, Justin was still his father. Pete could remember how he'd always taken him along to work and all his meetings when he was still a baby. He made a split-second decision. Just as his mum was about to sign the agreement, he knocked over a glass of water next to him, splashing it all over the papers. Nora had only written one word when the liquid soaked through the papers. The ink ran, obscuring the words and invalidating the agreement. Henry cursed angrily. "What are you doing, you little—" Pete picked up the glass and replied innocently, "My hand slipped." Angela stepped forward angrily. Pete trembled. Nora bent over, picked him up, and held him protectively in her arms. With a sinister look, she snapped, "How dare you?" Lisa grabbed Angela and held her back. "I'm sure she didn't do it on purpose, Angela." Irene stretched out her arm anxiously from her hospital bed. "Why are you being so nasty to a 5-year-old, Henry? She's only a child. It's just a contract. You can print another copy." Henry was furious. It had all been going to plan. He'd been about to get his hands on the agreement. Nora had been about to sign. He couldn't believe a 5-year-old had managed to ruin everything. Wendy gnashed her teeth. She managed to control her temper and stayed more rational than her husband. She spoke to Nora calmly but firmly. Go back to the house with your father and sign the agreement. He will reprint it. Nora narrowed her eyes. She looked at the child in her arms and said, I'm taking Cherry back to the hotel first. Even if it was for the sake of finding her son, there was no way she would let her daughter come to any harm. Henry sneered. Huh, you sure are protective of that little girl. We'll wait for you at home. Nora walked out with Pete in her arms. Wendy nudged Angela lightly and said, Take the car and follow your sister to the hotel, Angela. Your dad and I will take a cab back home. Angela stomped her foot and demanded, Mom, why? Wendy lowered her voice and replied, What if she doesn't come over after stopping in at the hotel? Go and keep tabs on her. Only then did Angela finally realize what she meant. She quickly chased after Nora. On the way back to the hotel, Pete sat in the car's back seat, deep in thought. He'd only temporarily interrupted Mummy from signing the agreement just now. If he wanted to stop his grandfather's plans, he'd need to think of another solution. He quietly picked up his cell phone and sent Cherry a text. Cherry, are you there? It's urgent. She replied very quickly. I'm here, what's up? Pete sent her an urgent request, his fingers tapping away as fast as they could. Use Daddy's cell phone and send an anonymous email to Mummy. Do it quick, here's what it needs to say. Nora looked unperturbed by what had just happened, but in truth, she felt overwhelmed and anxious. Will he really tell me where my son is if I sign the agreement? She was still thinking about it when her cell phone suddenly vibrated. She picked it up casually, but froze after glancing at it. There was an anonymous email in her mailbox. It only contained a few words. I know where your son is. Don't sign the agreement. Nora felt a chill run through her body and her spine tingled. Who sent this email? I must find out. She placed the phone in her lap and tapped at it frantically, trying to track the sender's location. Suddenly, her eyes widened in shock, and she stopped abruptly. That was so close. It's lucky I know what I'm doing. I've stopped just in time. A little more searching and my cell phone would have forcibly shut down and rendered useless. Who exactly sent that email? How on earth did they get XYZ to write firewall software for them? Nora recognized the skill of the internationally renowned hacker. Whoever it was must be really powerful. Maybe they do know where my son is after all. The authenticity of the email's content was certainly worth considering. It had also given her a sudden wake-up call. She drummed her fingers against the car seat as she thought about everything that had happened in the weeks since she'd returned to the States. It had certainly been exciting. And so long. The Greys and the Smiths both seemed to have an unhealthy interest in the small company that her mother had left her. There must be secrets I don't know about. I wonder what the company is hiding. The car quickly arrived at the hotel. Nora and Pete got out and headed over to the entrance. Angela had just got there too. She chased after Nora and the child, yelling, Where are you going? You're supposed to be signing the agreement. Don't you want to look for your son anymore? Come back here. Nora raised an eyebrow at Angela's dramatics and replied calmly, You must all think I'm stupid. You really think Dad will tell me the truth? I'm not falling for that. I'm not signing anything until I know for sure. Angela stomped her foot in anger. Nora, how can you go back on your word? Nora took the child's hand and said coldly, You want me to give you the company? Sure. Tell Dad to find my son and bring him to me first. She left Angela in the street, took Pete's hand, and walked straight into the hotel. They'd only taken a couple of steps when they heard somebody desperately calling, Wake up! Wake up! Her doctor's intuition kicked in, and she looked to see what was going on. She saw a middle-aged man collapsed by the wall of the lobby. His face was pale, and she couldn't tell whether he was breathing. Nora said to Pete, Head on upstairs by yourself, Cherry. I'll go over and help take care of this. Up in her dad's suite, Cherry was combing her newly bought Barbie's hair. Justin sat on the sofa next to her, staring at his cell phone solemnly. The international hacker, Q, had just tried to bypass his cell phone's firewall. What's Q up to? Thank goodness XYZ wrote that software for me. Not even Q could get through that, Justin thought with relief, still unsure why the attempt had been made. While he was musing it over, Cherry picked a pink tutu from the Barbie's row of princess dresses and asked, "How does she look in this one, Daddy?" Justin couldn't bring himself to watch, so he just replied dismissively, "It's lovely, son." "What about this one? There are so many pearls on it, and it's shiny." "It'll do too." "Daddy, you're not playing properly. You didn't even look at it." Justin looked round to see the child next to him, hands on hips and cheeks all puffed up angrily, looking adorably comical. An irate little... Justin liked the change in his son, how lively and talkative he now was, but he couldn't get used to it at all. He stood up and went to the study. "I'll go and finish some work." He needed some time alone. He tried hard to convince himself to accept it. In the end, he consoled himself by telling himself that as long as his son didn't start wearing princess dresses, everything was fine. Just then, Lawrence walked in with his report. He said respectfully, "Mr. Hunt, we've reinvestigated Miss Smith." Justin sat upright, intrigued to hear what his assistant had found out. "Tell me." Nora Smith struggled with obesity as a child. Due to poor health, she didn't go to school much. She gave birth to a daughter. It's said that the Greys were horrified about it, so the Smiths sent Nora and her daughter abroad to get out of the public eye, and there was no wedding. Lawrence frowned after he'd finished. There's something very strange, though. There's no information at all about Miss Smith during her 5 years abroad. It's as if someone has erased all traces, like she didn't exist. Athena had become famous 3 years ago. It was virtually impossible for someone to pick up medical training in just 2 years. Moreover, her surgical technique was so reliable, with such effective results, she must have spent years perfecting it. Lawrence continued, "One thing is certain. Nora Smith has never studied medicine. Therefore, we can essentially rule out the possibility that she's Athena." Justin was a little disappointed. Lawrence heard a voice coming through his earpiece. He listened carefully, concern creeping over his face, then looked back up at Justin. "Sir, there's an emergency down in the lobby."
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.